Okay. Got Hayden Lynch here with me today. Graduate of Hopkinton 1 year ago. Played a couple different sports throughout his high school tenure. The first he's going to talk about today is cross country.
Oh yeah, ran cross country my freshman, sophomore, junior year. Outed out my senior year just based off of timing. I wanted to do my own fall training. But I did it mostly to stay in shape for lacrosse come the spring and just having to compete. We won, I think our varsity team, I don't think we ever won as boys, but we did do pretty well. I just did it to try to stay in shape, keep my legs underneath me for the coming season.
All right. More prominent sport you did was lacrosse. Definitely like you were talking about training and how important that was for you to do. Let's hear something about freshman year lacrosse.
Freshman year lacrosse actually was pretty rough because I had just come off of my back surgery, so I was trying to make it just for the season. I did not know Deacon Blue at the time, so I was hoping he'd just be nice enough to give me a spot on the team. I couldn't when tryouts came, I couldn't do any contact, so I could only do the little warm-up drills. And it was just really rough. I had come off of 3 months of bed rest, had 2, 3 weeks to get in any running, any physical activity before tryouts, and then headed straight into tryouts. Was on JV that year. Didn't really get too much varsity action, and then the varsity team made it to state championship and got a two-peat that year.
All right. I think it's cool to talk about your injury and just battling through that. Do you want to talk more about what that process was like and advice for other athletes who are going through the same thing?
I had spinal tethering done in December that year. Tryouts, I believe, spring sports were March, and so I had a few weeks in the hospital. My test to get out of the hospital was I had to walk a flight of stairs and across the nurse's station. Got that done in 2 weeks. Came back, was on the couch through Christmas, which was a little sad and funny at the same time, but took a nice nap Christmas Day. Then I went, tried to get off my bed rest as soon as possible, and I'm heading right into. I just contacted the coach ahead of time. I was like, "Hey, I'm coming off of bed rest. Can't do any big contact. Can't really be getting leveled and destroy my back more." So then he was nice enough to say you can come out, do the line drills, box drills, agility ladder, and then head back. And then I got to watch, learn the plays, studied the playbook a lot then, so I got down pretty quickly compared to some of the other guys. And I didn't ride the bench per se, but he was a little hesitant, I think, to put me in due to the fact if I got nailed, it could have been a worse situation than anyone else getting nailed, a big hit. However, that year I was up at Laconia High School. We did a little 4-team round robin mini tournament type thing. He put me in on a fast. I was playing D-pole at the time, and he put me in, and on a fast break, I took a shot to the neck, which was interesting because no one knew where the ball went. It was actually on my feet. I didn't know that. I had lost all feeling below my neck. I just hobbled off the field, and he thought I had done something to my back. Really, I just had like this huge, hickey looking mark on my neck from a lacrosse ball. Got harassed a few weeks for that one. That was a good one though. So that kind of like woke me up, brought me back into it. It was like when you need to get that first hit out of the way after coming off an injury to just tell yourself that you're okay. That was like my hit was a shot to the neck.
Your sophomore season, you guys came back. You weren't dealing with battling from behind with an injury. You had some experience at this point. What can you tell us about that year?
Sophomore year, he definitely let more of the younger guys take control, put a lot more of us in from time to time. At that point, I was a mix of deep pull and midfield. I would do wherever I was really needed. And we went on to win a championship that year too for the three-peat. And that was a lot more fun, at least for me, because I was more invested in the team because I was participating in varsity through the season rather than just getting like 30 seconds at the end here and 30 seconds there. I was getting a few minutes of playing time now and then. I was still on JV though, just do the count of guys. And it was just fun to get to play with that group. That group was a fun year. And freshman year, we had just lost Jerry, who was like defenseman player of the year every year. So we were more focused on an offensive type of game. We used Colby Quiet a lot,
Yeah.
the legend of Hopkinton. And he really helped us out that year. He got offensive player of the year that year, which helped. I don't know how many goals he had. And so that was that year wasn't too eventful though. We just kind of put our heads down and got to it. Oh, that was the year of Pelham though. We lost the game to Pelham that year, so it was 16-1.
Yeah, you were 17-0 the year prior, 16-1 this year.
And we lost to them away. They were home, and they were heckling the entire sideline the whole game, which got under a lot of guys' skin when you're down and getting heckled. It's not a fun time. But then we played them in the championship game, and we were expecting a really tough, hard game, but then we just ran up the score really quickly, and it was just completely. It was a shock to us. I think we went up the first 5-6 minutes. It was 3-0 us, and we were just shocked. And we're like, oh wait a minute, we can actually win this and like sweep the championship pretty quickly, which ended up happening, and we got the three-peat.
Yeah, it was awesome. Then the world changed the year after that, as we all know, with the COVID, and just not a great situation, I think, for anybody. That season was your junior year, and it was canceled. Um, how'd that make you feel? What did you do to prepare for that season? How'd your teammates feel, and how'd you guys get through it as a program?
That was rough because we were all hoping that we would have a season. It was Colby Quiet was heavily invested in the program, and he had put a lot of time and effort into training for his senior year, and he ended up losing that season. And we were predicted to go on at least to the championship, and we were hoping to get the four-peat that year. So it was just one of those things that we had to like
Yeah.
look at and realize that we weren't going to be able to play for the championship that year, and we would just hopefully get at it the next year. I myself hadn't done much to prepare beyond. I think I was still doing club at the time,
Okay. Yeah.
so I did some summer league stuff and some winter league.
Yeah.
It's all the guys every year we do the Tomahawks Bedford Indoor League. So we had done that, and we were like really ramped up for the season, and then it ended up getting canceled, which sucked because we'd all developed like the friendships and relationships as a
Oh.
team over the winter, just to then get our season canceled. It was rough.
Yeah. Senior year, did missing junior year make you want it just that much more and value it?
Yeah, it made me value it a lot more. We had lost 3 guys, so it wasn't like we lost 3 big guys. We lost Nick Higginbotham, Benny Madden, and Colby Quiet, who were 3 pretty key players. But we realized that the team was basically the same, and so we were like gun ho to get the championship, and ended up falling short in the quarterfinals to Trinity, which was really frustrating. But it happens. We had to step aside that. But I put a lot of work in before that season. I got myself a gym membership that year. Started getting a little bit bigger than I was. Ran a lot that year, like over the fall. I basically followed similar to cross country training, but rather than for distance, I was trying to get speed and agility up. And me and a few of my friends did that. The Brown brothers helped me out with that. So we were all ready for that season. And then just we were not expecting to lose in the quarterfinals, and we did at home. Which made it just that much worse.
Yeah.
7-5 that game. It wasn't even like it was not a. But we had to fight to even get that score.
So walking away from lacrosse at the end, what did you take with you that you learned there over the course of those 3 seasons?
I learned that, including cross country and lacrosse, that putting in your preseason work
Mhm.
is pretty important because, especially for cross country, I wouldn't do the summer running, get to the first 2 weeks of practice, or and then the coach's hell week as cross country. So it's hell week wasn't awful, but it was bad if we didn't do the summer running. So putting the preseason work, and not even physical work, but if you're doing lacrosse or team sport, learning the plays and maybe watching some of the film from the year before to realize, oh, maybe I made this mistake here. I should be doing this instead is really important when it comes to season prep and success in the season itself.
Yeah. So, after Hopkinton, you went on to college at Wilkes, and you decided that you wanted to play lacrosse there. Was that part of why you wanted to choose that school?
Yeah, the coach had reached out to me that whole senior summer and fall. I had been doing showcases and prospect events, and the coach reached out to me, and then I committed there, and they had a pharmacy school on campus, and I was doing biochem, so all the factors kind of added up. Because I wasn't in the pharmacy school, I was talking to some of the professors to get into some of their
Yeah.
classes in the future. So I was like, that would be helpful. And then the coach was really nice, and the guys were really nice. It was just a lot of time commitment, even just for preseason. We weren't even in season yet.
So you got there, you started playing preseason, you decided to study biochem. What was your motivation for studying that?
I wanted to do some drug research and development just based off of some of the struggles I had in elementary and middle school with my health. I was like, I want to kind of give back. And I also want to make a lot of money really fast so I could buy a farm. I figured that career is pretty lucrative so I could get the money I wanted. And to me, it just seemed like a fun major combining chemistry and biology, but it was a lot when I was doing lacrosse and clubs and trying to get involved on campus.
So, at the end of first semester of freshman year, you decided to leave Wilkes. What happened there?
I realized the spring schedules had come out, and for lacrosse alone, it was practice almost every day, 2 games a week, weight training, film room time, and on top of that, I was doing biochemistry, so I had like organic chem, like all these lab courses. I started to realize that my time would have been like torn, and I would have had to focus solely on academics and lacrosse and drop all my clubs, and that'd been my life would have been just lacrosse. Which is when I chose the D3 school because I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to be able to balance, maybe have lacrosse be like a small part of my campus involvement and be able to be in the clubs and attend events and go out with friends every now and then
Yeah.
versus having to sit in and do the lab report for the next week when because I had practice that whole week. My weekends would be spent on schoolwork. It wasn't that enjoyable.
Yeah. So what lesson did you take away from that that you would want other listeners to know about?
From that, just the first semester, I would say start weigh what you're doing before you start committing to it. Because I didn't really take in all my options and just committed to lacrosse because I was really gung ho on playing. And then when I got there, I realized that that wasn't solely what I wanted, even though that's what I initially thought. Start weighing how much one thing may take up your time. So if you're doing a sport, that could be the only thing you might end up doing, depending on how much time it takes up. And when you add in your academics and just having to take care of yourself, like do your laundry and dishes and all this other
Yeah.
stuff, you start to chip away at that time that you'd have to spend with friends or to go out to like just do anything with friends with or participate in an on-campus event or clubs. Because I remember first semester of practice, we're doing club hours, so I couldn't participate in any of the clubs, regardless if I signed up or not. So I got pretty frustrated about that. So that's what I took away from that was
Yeah.
just think about how you're spending your time, and if that's how you want to spend it, then that's good. But if you're realizing it's taking up too much time, then maybe you want to try to change, maybe do a club team at a D1 school or an intramural team rather than committing to a D1, D2, D3 school team.
All right. So at the end, you had to switch up, find a new school, and you actually took on a new major, animal science. Um, why'd you do that? What was your motivations for that? Why'd you choose UNH?
I chose UNH because it was I actually narrowed it down to UConn and UNH when I was going to transfer because I wanted to change to an animal science or something involving animals. I realized because I own my own goats, we got our chickens, we got like a mini farm in our backyard. I realized that that's kind of like what I like doing, and that my motivation to do biochem was around trying to get to that point faster. But that once I got to that point, I wouldn't know what I was doing. So I would have had the funds and the stuff to do it. I wouldn't know like what to do. So I was like, oh, I gotta do animal science now. I gotta make sure I know what I'm gonna do like when I get to that point. So then I was like, if I do the 4-year animal science program, and let's say I flunk my farm, just bomb it, be really bad, I can go back to school and just go to vet school out of that because there's additional 3 or 4 classes the way it lines up. And then that give me an alternative. So I had like safety plan with that one. And UNH is just such a big school that if I hated animal science, I'd be able to change majors easier than Wilkes, where it was, I think it was 2,000 undergrads, give or take. There wasn't a lot of choice in majors. So when you go to a bigger school, you're able to change a lot easier between majors. You don't have to necessarily transfer schools. And then chose animal science just based off I want to do something with animals. Like I said, I have my own goats and chickens. So
Yeah.
that was a hobby that I'd like to do for the rest of my life would be, well, one day own my own farm or ranch.
Um, so over the summer, I know that you've been working at a farm to gain more experience. Do you have anything noteworthy to talk about with that?
Yeah, it was pretty eye-opening that when you're thinking about farming, you think of like these established big places that not they aren't all like farm rate like the stereotypical poultry barn, but maybe they're pasture raised, but they're founded. The farm I was working at, this is only their 2nd year. So all the work we were doing was foundational, like get the crops up and running, plant this, plant that, clear these areas out, which was very different because I always had thought of like working or owning like a running operation already. That just made me realize all the work that goes into getting to that point and how much effort it takes to get to that point and manpower and all the different there's like jobs you never think of that we had to do. Like water level goes down in the pond that you're irrigating out of. So then you have to go and find a different place to irrigate or find a way to help that pond out or change how you're things like that that you wouldn't necessarily think of when you think of an operating farm, but that has to be done or is always happening.
So sort of the intangibles of farming is what you learned about, and you got more experience with.
Yeah, it was definitely different than well, not what I expected, but what I want to do because I want to do more animals. And the place I was at did more plants, flowers, crops. It's just the foundational work. It was crazy how much work had to go in to get that up and running.
Yeah. So I know you talk about your passion for animals, animal science, and farming. I know that something that also goes along with animals is hunting, and that's hunting and fishing is some of your interests. I've had nobody on that's covered that yet, so I know you're doing that as hobbies. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I've been hunting and well, at least hunting for most of my life. I used to go with my dad and grandfather almost at least every season, a few weekends. Um, and then my dad used to go. It was kind of ironic on Mother's Day. They would him and the males on his side of the family would go out hunting, and then they would come back for Mother's Day and they'd like celebrate and stuff. But it's just always been a big part of what I do over the fall and spring. I mainly hunt deer and turkey. I've tried to get into waterfowl hunting, but it's a lot to get started. So basically with that, actually over COVID, there was a few days I almost zoomed in from the woods and just said hi to Mr. Shorey from my tree stand or little bush area sitting in. But it was always fun because not even the hunting, it's just the getting to be outside part of it is what I mostly enjoy. And I particularly enjoy turkey hunting because it's more of a I have to think about it. The way I deer hunt is really just sit and hope I get lucky. But turkey hunting, I'll call in the turkeys, set up my decoys. Over COVID, I read a ton of books, watched film on all this turkey hunting stuff, so that I was able to have a successful season, which did not happen for deer hunting. But it's just fun because you can like call in the animals and you can hear them call back, and sometimes it's not even the animal that you're hunting that you see, but it's just cool. You get to see the wildlife.
Yeah, I also enjoy being outside a lot, and I think that aspect of seeing animals is something that a lot of people find enjoyment in. Fishing.
Fishing, me and Theodore, who we've had on, did a lot of that over the summer for COVID. And we just went all over. I've been most places in New Hampshire. I've been northern New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. My most notable fishing is I went out, my family was out at Yellowstone after my senior year. We took a trip out to Yellowstone for a few weeks. And I fished in Yellowstone National Park and caught cutthroat trout off of Yellowstone Lake, which were like 20 plus inches long. Those were big trout.
Yeah.
And then I caught a Yellowstone native cutthroat with one of the flies that I tied in a little river off of where we were camping at one point. That was probably one of my favorite catches. I've gone deep sea fishing a lot. I did tuna fishing with Theodore. We caught a tuna that was one of those, you're not the biggest fish in the sea anymore when you see a big fish, but that thing was huge. Did not know fish got that. Well, I knew, but it's when you see it, it's different than when you're watching on TV or finding pictures of it.
So you're gonna be on the next Wicked Tuna season.
Yeah, I'll be on the pinwheel at a rye.
Oh yeah, Pinwheel at a Rye, I know that one. Yep. But
It's been really interesting. Like the experiences I've had fishing and hunting with people and the wildlife is just some of the best memories I've had.
yeah, that's a good thing. Anything else like advice for anybody about any of this stuff or things you're appreciative of?
I'm very appreciative of the players I've got to play with. All have been great guys. The coaches I've got to play under have been splendid. Especially Deacon really loves the game. You can tell when he coaches that that's where he's coaching from. He's not coaching because his son's on the team or coaching because he thinks he has to. He's coaching because he loves the game and he wants to pass on his knowledge and his love. As far as everything goes in life, is learned is do your homework before you jump in because it helps you a lot. And it's just between fishing, hunting, cross country, lacrosse, any preseason prep or actually preseason for both, or when you're going somewhere, you want to know the rules and regulations. When you're playing a game, you want to know the plays or what you're trying to do. Cross country, you want to walk the course before you run it, so you know what you're going to be getting yourself into.
Okay.
Just all comes together at once.
All right. Thanks, Hayden.
Nice being on.
Yeah.